Hi there. In this Projector video, I'm going to quickly add a bunch of activities to this project. So activities are basically the smallest tasks that will be involved with a project, broken down into their elements. So I'm only going 2 levels deep with my activities. In real life, you may go deeper than that. You may have activities that are sub-activities of other activities. So I've got all of my activities listed already in a document, so I've taken the time to make a little to-do list, and this to-do list is in the order that I wish to take care of all of these things. And it's generally best with both Projector and MS Project to add the activities in the order that you wish to accomplish them or go through them. You can reorganize them later, but it's easier if you just add them in order right from the get-go, so it helps to have them jotted down in the list. I'm just going to move this to one side and refer to it off screen so that you can see what I'm doing with Projector with these various activities. One thing you'll notice that I have dismantle forks one day, new seals one day, new bearings. So this is dismantle the entire engine, dismantle the entire motorcycle. But then with this forks, this is a activity with sub-activities. And then the swing arm, one sub-activity, wheels, a couple of sub-activities, a few things for the frame and the tank. So basically we have a sub-activity for most activities. I'm just going to move this out of the way and then add these. So presently I'm on projects, so when you open Projector you may be in the today view. That's what that looks like. And then to get to projects we can simply click on projects here. I believe we can also find projects in this list here. I think every single thing you can do with Projector will be found here. One thing I didn't mention in my previous video is that I've changed the view of my screen, so we have screen views here. I'm always going to be using this one here, the horizontal view. So basically you get a list of all of your items and then the present item that you have selected up here with all of its details. That's the view I like to work with. It gives me the most room, I feel. This is a little bit cramped and not so obvious. Same way I have my email client Outlook set up. So I'll have a list of all my emails, and then if I click on one I'll see the contents of my email down here. So that's the view I like to use. So I'm going to go to and choose this project. So that's the project I'll be working on. If we have multiple projects, you want to make sure you choose the project you're working on. You can also choose the project up here. However you like to do it. And then we find our activities. In the earlier version of Projector, they used to be under a heading called Work. They're now under Planning. And you see we have a bunch of things that we can add to planning. We'll look at all of these as we work through these videos. This is now the 3rd video. So I'll choose Activities. So I get a list of all of my activities and then the particular activity that we have selected. So I have no activities, so we don't have one selected, of course. So just like we had with our projects, we can click on this little button here that'll give a new activity, or you can use this button here. Both of them do the same thing. So I'm going to click on Create a New Activity, and the first one will be my dismantle. And it is a task. We have some other options here. I don't need any other options, but if I wished to share this activity with someone, you may want to describe what the activity is. So if dismantle isn't obvious, I'm going to say dismantle motorcycle just to be perfectly clear, because you'll see that we have a couple of dismantles as activities. So we don't want to use the same dismantle for all of our activities, otherwise you won't know what we're dismantling. We'll take a look at treatment here. It's got no parent yet, but we'll be looking at that later on. I'm not going to mess with the status until we're actually working on this project. We have people we can make responsible. We'll look at that later on. And then we can choose some other options for in progress, done, closed. We'll look at that later on as well. So we don't need to change anything here. We'll look at using parents and children later on. Under progress, we are going to not enter a start date or an end date. We're going to allow these to populate automatically once we link our activities together and add our children and parents. But I'm going to add a duration of 1 day. So all of my activities with this project will take at least 1 day. In previous versions of Projector, that was the smallest unit, 1 day. We couldn't add 0.5 of a day. I'm not sure if we can add it 0.5 of a day. Try it out if you like. And I don't think we need to change anything else here, but I'm going to quickly give this a color code because I like colors. As I mentioned before, you can choose whatever color you like. You might have particular colors you have for tasks, and I think I'm good. Configuration, we don't need to mess with anything there. Dependencies, we'll look at this in the next video. And links, files, you can add a picture of the motorcycle dismantled or before dismantled if you like, and then notes if you need to share any more details about people who are maybe actually dismantling the motorcycle. It might not be you. So I'm going to go ahead and save that task. And we now have one activity for this project. I'm going to add the forks activity, which has 2 sub-activities, so we can see how that works. Basically, we will mess with the treatment tab for that. So I'm going to create a new activity. You can either do it here or here. This one's going to be called forks. So forks has 2 sub-activities. So I'm going to not add a duration. I want this to be populated automatically from its subtasks. So if you have a parent activity, you add the duration to the children, not the parent. And I don't think we need to change anything here, so we can just save that. We're done with forks. One thing I do like to add a color for that. Can't remember where the color is. There we are. And I'll go ahead and save. So one thing you'll notice is you don't necessarily need to save when you navigate from tab to tab. You can save once you've taken care of all of the information for that task. So we've got forks here, ID 1, ID 2. Now I'm going to add new fork seals. The task that I have in my little notes is new seals, but I may have new seals for other things, so I'm going to say new fork seals, just so I can differentiate this task via the text for the task. So again, I'm going to click on new task, and I'm going to say new fork seals. It's a task, and I don't need to fill anything else out here. Again, in real life, I would probably add a description in case I'm not working on the task myself. And then for the treatment, I'm going to make forks the parent. And I'm all set. In the progress, again, this has a parent, but it has no children. If it had children, I would not populate this. So I'm going to add a duration of 1 day. And I believe I'm all set. You can pick a color if you like. I'll just go ahead and add a color to everything when I remember, and I'll save it. So now, you see it has an ID of 3. We can add more fields to this later on. I'll show you that we have different identifiers. I'm just going to double check that I handled this correctly. Yep, forks, number 2. Description, good. And then I'm going to add one more. So I'm going to add new bearings to forks. I'm going to say new fork bearings. So again, new task or new activity. And this is going to be new fork bearings. It's a task. Make sure you always make sure it's still belonging to the correct project. This won't change because I selected the project before I added these activities. But if you did it, you can change that here if you have more than one project. And then treatment, parent activity is forks. Not seals, but forks. And progress, it's going to take a day. And we can now save this thing. No, I'm just going to quickly change its color because I remember to. And save. So that's basically adding activities to your project. Now I'm going to quickly see a couple of other views here. Notice that we have this little select columns to display. I'm going to click on the drop down here and see what other information we can add about these activities, which are tasks. So presently these are all of the columns that we have available, these ones that are switched on. Now what I'm looking for is the work breakdown structure code, which becomes interesting. Is it the WSDI? I think so. WBS. I don't know where I got WSDI. So I'm going to turn that on and choose OK. And then I'm going to drag that over to the far left. So we can move these columns around just like in Excel, which is pretty powerful for a web application. So you see that we have, this is the project number, I believe, 1. This is the activity number. So this is activity number 2. These are still part of activity number 2, so they get a 0.1. So that's how the work breakdown structure codes work. And those are automatically assigned by where these tasks lie in the order of tasks. Tasks also known as activities in this situation, as well as what we've chosen as their parent. I don't need to see the ID, so I'm going to turn off the ID. I like to see the WBS instead of the ID, so I'm just going to turn that off. Now it doesn't look like I can turn it off, but I can hide it by just dragging it way over. We'll just put it way over here. I'm going to be using that responsible later on, so I'm just going to move that in front of ID. I'm going to be using that progress right now and the status. We'll see that planned due date once we start populating this stuff. Now, I can now look at my Gantt chart. So you can find your Gantt chart by simply, remember we're on the planning submenu. If you want to get back to home, by the way, you can just click on that. Here's home. We navigated to planning. And now if I go to planning, we actually get to see the beginnings of our Gantt chart. Now, one thing about this is I set the project date to start on July 12th, I believe. I'll just double check that. I meant to anyway. So, yeah, July 12th. However, if you look at the planning, it's starting today. So one thing we want to do is set the date of the very first task to be the same start date as the project. So I'm going to click on this dismantle motorcycle. Oh, that doesn't do anything. I'll go to activities. We can also go to planning activities. Notice it's up here. Either one. And I'm going to take that dismantle motorcycle and add the start date for that. So I only add the start date for the very first task, not the other ones. They'll be automatically populated based on what we do in the next video. So that's going to be July 12th. And there's a reason I use July 12th. It's so we can actually see. It's June 29th right now, so we'll actually be starting this project while this cohort is still in session, so we can see what happens with these tasks once we start working on them. So we can see the progress. So we'll get past the planning stage and we'll be able to actually interact with these activities and tasks. So I'm going to save that. And I'll look at my planning now. It's still on the 29th, but later on we'll show you how we can shift this to the correct point in time. It requires that we link these tasks together, which we're not going to do in this video. This video is just to add the activities. We'll link them in a future video. So that is adding activities, also known as tasks in this situation. So we added an activity that also had children, or those sub-activities had a parent. And then we'll look at linking these tasks up in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.